awesome.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No, you're awesome.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And you may have noticed that we didn't post an episode last week, and there's a reason for that that we'll get to in just a moment. I just want to remind everybody to check us out on the interwebs. The show can be found on Twitter at RealAwesomePod, on Instagram at Awesome Podcast, and of course on the internet at awesomepodcast.com. You can find me on Twitter. Is probably the best place to find me on at that nerdy Kev. And nerdykev.com is something that I'm in the process of getting back up. There's a post up there about cancer, which we'll also touch on in this episode. And a little, I've become a brand ambassador for FCancer, fuck cancer, let's FCancer, whatever you want to call them. So if you want to donate to a pretty good cause that means something to me, then go for it. I'd rather you do that than do what I'm about to ask you as well, and that's go to our Patreon page. You can help support this podcast, though please support anything that's, an actual charity first. Support cancer and, cancer research, anti-kid touching, whatever, like the Wayne Foundation, whatever charity you like, support that first, or support FCancer or the Wayne Foundation. They're like the two charities that I really support. But if you have some spare cash after that and you don't want to spend it on booze or spend it on boring bills or anything like that, you can help me cover some of the bills for Everything is Awesome by simply going to patreon.com/awesomepodcast. It's also on awesomepodcast.com. If you click the support link in our menu, it takes you to like a couple ways that you can help support us. And Patreon is probably the funnest way to help support us. Because you get bonus stuff, you might get some swag, and think of Patreon as an ongoing Kickstarter. You send a little bit of scratch to us every month, you get a little something in return every month. There's rewards. I have goals that I want to meet that I actually am going to go through again and maybe tweak them a little bit. But basically, what Patreon does for artists like me, indie artists, is it gives us an opportunity to allow the fans to help support us in whatever fashion they choose, and then also gives you something in return for it. And at the end of the day, I'm still going to be paying for this out of my pocket, for Everything is Awesome. But if we could get some of that cost covered by you guys, then that just means we can do cool things like live shows like we did at the Philadelphia Podcast Festival, like we're going to do in 2 days. 2 days in New York City. We're going to Hell's Kitchen, guys. And we're going to be going on at 11 p.m. Our time was bumped by an hour. We're going to go on at 11 p.m. and do our show live. We're going to have Rachel Leishman on. Leishman? I'm so sorry, Rachel. I have not found out how to pronounce your name properly yet. God's honest truth, I probably will not even ask you before we have you on the show. But she's coming on. She's an actress. She's an improv artist. She's a podcaster. So I'm really excited to have someone that I don't know as a guest on the live show. I'm really excited. We have a game planned with her. And then we also are going to have a musical guest. The cast of Once Upon a Time, the rock opera, will be on hand to sing a couple songs and talk about their film and stuff. It's gonna be a good old time. It's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of drinking, I'm sure. So if you're in the New York City, I think it's there's only a few spots left to come in and watch the show. So go, to check that out. Go to tickets.awesomepodcast.com. To see how many, if I don't even know if it's sold out yet, but anyway, on to this week's show. This is episode 37, guys. Should have been out last week, September 28th, but some things happened that made me not post it. So I recorded it, and shockingly, and I know, again, this week it's not going to happen really, but I thought it was going to be a lot more emotional talking about it, and I shockingly kept my composure. I think I got choked up a few times, but overall, it was all kind of good. Nothing. I did not break down and cry like I thought it was going to. Now, you might say, "What are you're gonna break down and cry about Kevin Smith?" Yes, actually, I very, very well could have, and here's why. Here's why I thought that was gonna be a super emotional episode. On top of the fact that I already, like, when I talk about Chasing Amy or I watch Chasing Amy, I tend to, get emotional because it's just a really emotional movie. As I brought up my uncle, and this kind of goes back to the beginning of the episode, and me talking about cancer and stuff, and how I want to bring that up in this week's episode. So, a couple months ago, my uncle was diagnosed with cancer, but it was very positive from the get-go and whatnot, and none of us really talks about it like publicly. Like we talked about it within our family circle, and I told my close personal friends who I consider family, and but everything was really positive because things were just going really, really well. And there's a reason I'm talking about this during my Kevin Smith episode, and I promise I'll get there. But just the day before my Philadelphia podcast show, we found out that he was no longer in remission. He was only in remission for probably about a month. And it was like a huge gut, punch to the gut. I was super emotional about, finding out the first time, and finding out the second time was like just worse. It was just worse. And then, after that, things just, it was a bigger hurdle. Long story short, it's been a bigger hurdle. At the time of me recording the podcast for this episode 37 Kevin Smith episode, things were it just was a very depressing time. It wasn't bad. There was no talk that this is the end or anything like that. Thank God. It just was like, a very, very big hurdle to get over. And since then, I have had the opportunity to go and stay the night, one night with him. And even like that was a huge improvement from the last time I saw him from that. And like things are just in such an uptick and whatnot that I didn't want to post the episode where I was kind of dejected about it, because now I have this newfound positivity for it. And anyone that I've talked to, whether you're a close friend or family or on the internet, I've posted a couple things about cancer, and obviously I have a blog post on nerdykev.com about it. So a bunch of you super friends out there have totally sensed your positive vibes or your thoughts and prayers or whatever you choose to do. And I really, truly do appreciate that to all my super friends. And that includes the listeners, that includes my friends, that includes my family. And it's kept me in good spirits, as well as a couple podcasts that I'll shout out in just a minute. But, so things are on a much better swing. And that's why I wanted to re-record this episode, and that's why I just skipped last week altogether, because it was just kind of a busy week dealing with all the emotions and whatnot. Now, before I move on to why I'm talking about my uncle and his cancer during this Kevin Smith's awesome episode, I do want to do a couple shout-outs to a few podcasts out there that have really have always in my times of sadness brought me laughter, for some of them, but recently some of them are new listens, they're new friends, and during this before, I would say, Friday, one of the saddest times of my life, dealing with my uncle, I shouldn't say dealing with my uncle, but having to go through, I'm not going through anything, let's put that out there, but, having to be, just see what this disease is doing to my uncle, or did to my uncle, up at one point. These podcasts have really kind of made me forget for the hour that I listened in, and made me laugh. Jason, Jason Ashley from Too Cool for Tabletop. Jason, James, Madeline, and Chris, the gang at Too Cool for Tabletop. Their podcast is hilarious. It's funny, and it's just a really good, fun, actual play D&D podcast. I just thank you guys. Thank you, Jason. Especially you and I talk outside of podcast as well. So, not that we talked about my uncle or anything, but I consider you a friend, and the fact that I get to listen to your podcast, and it's one of my favorite podcasts out there right now, is just thank you so much for doing what you do and making me forget. Jeff Stormer with Party of One podcast, same kind of deal, except it's a game built for two, and whether it's him telling a really good story to get me to laugh or draw actual emotion from me. Just another podcast that when I listened to, I was able to escape my brain for the hour or whatever. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Party of One, and all your guests that come on and do that thing. This is a fairly new podcast that I picked up because of Jeff, actually, and that's the campaign podcast from the One Shot Network. Now, I don't know any of these cats personally. I have not talked to them. I'm hoping to get various members of that team on this show at some point. Now that I'm all caught up, I would love to sit down and just chat with them. But I'd say this one, and this is not anything against any the other podcasts I want to mention, or Jeff or Jason and their podcasts, but the campaign podcast really, really helped me during this time. So thank you to and I don't really know all their names, so I'm just gonna go with their character names. Thank you, Lintel. Thank you, Trist. Thank you, Lenik, and thank you, Bacta. The campaign podcast is a Star Wars actual play podcast using the Edge of the Empire system, and it was a lot. It's just one of the funniest podcasts I know, but more importantly, because of its Star Wars connection, it really meant a lot listening to that, their story, the campaign podcast story, unfold and let me laugh for the hour, or anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes or whatever it is, letting me laugh and forget about it. It means a lot, because the first person I ever watched Star Wars with was with my uncle. I don't know how old I was, but first time I ever watched A New Hope was, probably, I'm 32 now, was probably, over 20 years ago. I was probably single digits in age, and I remember sitting down and watching it with my uncle, and that scene where the Tusken Raider pops up and scares Luke, and Luke falls back. That was, I jumped, I got scared, and Star Wars has a special place in my heart, especially with the recent events with my uncle. So I have very fond memories of that, and to hear a podcast that loves that universe so goddamn much, and have a lot of fun with their characters that they created in this, alt universe, or whatever you want to call it, in the Star Wars universe that they're playing their game in, and it was an excellent way for me to laugh, an excellent way for me to forget about everything that was happening for an hour a week. If you have not listened to Campaign Podcast, I highly recommend you do. You might not have the emotional connection that I have to it, but it is funny. It ranks up there with some of the best actual play podcasts, and I only listened to I guess 4 of them. I listened to 4 of them, so it's ranks up there with just all those other 3. So thank you to everyone involved with Campaign Pod. You've helped more than you can ever imagine. Thank you to A Quest for Magic and Steel, David Steele, and the whole Steel clan, Steel Empire, the extra E for entertainment. They are another actual play podcast, a little bit of a shorter form one. Usually it's usually 30 minutes to 40 minutes, but Again, just it was a way for me to escape. The storytelling's done really well by the DM, Amara. Sorry, I always forget how to pronounce your name. You can belittle me later, Dave. And just they're all really good, and the whole cast kind of just, I don't know, it's just a wonderful family experience. And that's what I appreciate the most out of that podcast, and hearing the stories told from there. It just warms my heart. So, thank you to you guys. And, one final thank you goes to, basically, I'm gonna say it to the Smodcast network, but it's mainly Smodcast and Tell 'em Steve Dave. Those, Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, Johnson, and Walt Flanagan and BQ, you guys, they're some of the funniest guys that out there, and I've been lucky enough to chat with Walt. I've been lucky enough to have a very small conversation with Johnson and with BQ at the Red State premiere, and just really nice guys. They're really funny, and I think it goes without saying that you guys helped me through a tough time. Okay, so how does this all tie? How do all these things, my uncle's cancer, me thanking these podcasts and whatnot, and Star Wars tie into Kevin Smith? So I mentioned that my uncle introduced me to Star Wars. I give a lot of credit to Kevin Smith for influencing me to be the person I am today as far as a storyteller and entertainer. But that credit should go to my uncle, because my uncle, I am very much my uncle. Not only do I look like my uncle a lot, but I have his mannerisms. I have his sense of humor. He's only 16 years older than me, so my uncle is more like an older brother at this point. And we've always had good times hanging out and whatnot. And I am the person I am today, obviously because of my parents, but to a large degree because of my uncle. And my uncle showed me a little black and white film when I was probably 12 years old in 1996. I have to guess is when this happened. And at the time, all I thought was, what is this black and white film? And I didn't really think much of it. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But as time went on, my uncle showed me, I don't know if he showed me Mallrats or not, but he definitely showed me Dogma. And it was a good movie. I liked it then. But I still, and I didn't grasp the whole universe that was being created there. And then at one point I found Jay and Silent Bob on my own. Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. And I was like, these guys are in those other movies. Let me go revisit this universe. And that's when I became an epic Kevin Smith fan. So for me to give credit to Kevin Smith and say that he is an influence on who I am today as an entertainer or storyteller or whatever, is I need to go back a step further and go back to my uncle, because he's the one that showed me the way. He's the one that introduced me to Kevin Smith. And for that reason, as much as Star Wars has a special place in my heart, especially these days, as I get older, or again, because I just have that fond memory of watching it with my uncle who is going through this tough time now. I have that same feeling, that same special place in my heart for Kevin Smith too. And I don't know that I would have said that before, my uncle had cancer. I definitely would have said that Kevin Smith meant a lot to me as far as an entertainer is concerned. I admire him, but I don't know if I would ever say he had a special place in my heart before, but now he does. If your heart is divided into sections for family, for your in my case, fiance, but your significant other and your kids and whatnot, my heart hopefully has grown an extra size or two to make room for some of these other things that are really important to me, like Star Wars and just pop culture, geek culture in general, and Kevin Smith, because I would not be the person I am today without my uncle, or without Star Wars, or without Kevin Smith. Sorry, I got a little emotional there. Anyway, so that's how this all ties together. And one final beat before I move on after, I don't know, 20 minutes of recording probably. One of the final beat before I get into this podcast about Kevin Smith is if you have a desire to just help in any way, obviously, like I said, positive vibes, prayers, thoughts, whatever your thing is, are most welcome. But if you want to financially help, and this isn't to help my uncle directly, it's to help cancer. That charity I mentioned earlier, the Let's FCancer, Fuck Cancer, FCancer charity. If anyone that knows my uncle very much knows that, like, that's my uncle. He's very loose with the foul language, much like the Kevin Smith that you all know. And so that's why I kind of gravitated to that charity. I've known about him for a couple of years now, and the day that I found out that my uncle had cancer was the day that I went to their website and bought a couple shirts for him and I, because I knew that he would fucking love it, because it is exactly what my uncle. I mean, I think we all probably have that feeling about fuck cancer, but it's exactly my uncle. It's exactly how I picture my uncle, and I think the charity, if he were to choose a cancer charity, I think that's the one he would pick, and whatnot. So you can go to nerdykev.com and read my blog post about it. It's a little bit more. I wrote that when my uncle was going through a really, one of the toughest times with this cancer battle. So it might be a little bit more emotional or whatever. But there's also a donate link to Let's FCancer, FCancer, Fuck Cancer. And you can donate through everything. It's Everything Is Awesome. Everything Is Awesome says Fuck Cancer is my little campaign or whatever for them as a brand ambassador for Fuck Cancer. So. Okay, after 20 minutes, let's go to the career of Kevin Smith and one of the, episode 37, I tried to get him on. It was hard to find contact information. I know you guys are saying, fuck you, you can get him on Twitter, but, you can't. He's got 2 million followers or something, so it's hard to get his attention and say, be on my podcast. I found a solid email address, or at least I'm 99% sure I found a solid email address to contact someone that could possibly set it up, but nothing happened with it, which is fine. I totally respect that dude's busy. He's promoting Yoga Hosers. He's directing The Flash. He's directing Supergirl and stuff. So, motherfucker, I who am I? I'm no one to him. So I get that I'm a busy fella, or that he's a busy fella. So. In lieu of having him on, I could have skipped episode 37 and just aired episode 38 with the boys from After 6, but I didn't want to do that because that's just not me. I mean, I do skip weeks, obviously, like we did last week, but I wanted to do something about Kevin Smith, especially in this time where he means probably the most to me than he ever has. So let's just I have about 20 minutes left before I have to stop this recording, so let's just kind of get into it. Let's get into the career of Kevin Smith, the directing career, which also covers most of his writing career as well. But let's just get into some of his movies and chat about that. I'll have some commentary about each one. And Clerks is special to me. Clerks, at first, before, I didn't realize I wanted to do something with filmmaking until I was about 27 years old. Well after I became a fan of Kevin Smith, well after I started podcasting, well after I was I should have found out earlier, but so Clerks now in my late 20s and now early 30s is a film I watch and say, motherfuck, if that can be a movie, and not in a negative way, that's so not what I mean by that, but if that's a movie, I can make a movie. Like, why not me, And I would hope that my first movie that I will make one day, like, I'm hoping that that's a movie some kid watches and says, if that's a movie, why not me? Like, that's, I think, would be the greatest compliment to a movie, in my opinion. And Clerks embodies that. Clerks embodies the indie spirit, which I'm a huge fan of. I've given up. I listen to a lot of mainstream podcasts. Now I listen to a lot of more indie podcasts, like Campaign Podcasts, like Too Cool for Tabletop, like After 6 podcasts, like A Quest for Magic and Steel. All these podcasts that I've talked about and that I listen to. Most of them are indie now. The only mainstreams I really listen to are Smodcast and Tell 'em Steve Dave now. It's indies. I bleed indie. I love indie. I love that indie spirit. That's what Clerks embodies. And every time I watch that movie, I always think back to, wow, this is awesome. This is history. Clerks is history. I don't think any movie will ever live that Clerks experience. The indie movies are harder and harder to come by, and movies that change the game, I think, are harder to come by. And you might say, what did Clerks change? I think Clerks offered the ability, or at least mainstreamed the ability to create a movie about talking. Like this is a movie that I would want to see, so I'm going to make this movie. Or this movie has people talking about Star Wars. It's a very pop culture heavy movie, and that all stems from Kevin Smith. The R-rated comedy, I feel, comes, obviously there was some before Kevin Smith, and there were obviously some after, but I think 94 was just, we're never going to get that Clerks experience again. Clerks, for me, is a history-making movie, and I think it's very well done for, especially for its budget, and it is definitely, I think, a movie that you can study and say, this is how to, or maybe how to not make a film in some cases, in some scenes and whatnot. So Clerks is I'll always love Clerks again, and that was my uncle's gateway into me getting into Kevin Smith is by showing me Clerks. Obviously Mallrats, which is probably some people's favorite movie of all time from Kevin Smith. Mallrats did not do well in theater. It was ahead of its time, and it has a huge cult following. I mean, that cult following has now grown beyond that, I believe. But it found its success in VHS and DVD and stuff. And I enjoy Mallrats. I love it. Mallrats, I mean, obviously I knew that there was something more than just these individual movies when I saw Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back for that first time. But going back and rewatching these movies, I rewatched them in order. And watching Mallrats and hearing those direct references to Clerks and this universe building before there were universes, before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and before just trilogies of movies, not before that, but after the trilogy, the Star Wars universe was those Star Wars movies, and to some extent some of the extended universe stuff that's now legacy. But in a cinematic sense, there was never been a true cinematic universe, and nothing that to that extent. And Marvel probably is the one that named the cinematic universe, that term there, but Kevin Smith did it first. Before Marvel, it was Kevin Smith building his Jersey trilogy out of 5 movies. Mallrats also gave us Jason Lee. Jason Lee is one of my favorite actors. I try to watch everything he's been in or will be in. I think he's just a wonderful actor. I support talent, and Mallrats is just a fun ride. It's a fun movie, and I get why it's some people's favorite movie. Now, Chasing Amy is the one. Chasing Amy is my movie. That's my favorite Kevin Smith movie of all time. And I think it's because I can relate to Holden, though I've always said I relate to Dante Hicks more. I would imagine, whenever I picture myself as a person in the Kevin Smith universe, or the View Askew verse, I always picture myself as Dante Hicks. But I would say to an extent, I've always had a connection to Holden. I've always had that connection. This movie became my favorite movie for 2 simple reasons. And they're closely related. And it was the 2 monologues in that film. Ben Affleck's monologue, when he confesses his love to Joey Lauren Adams. I'm not using character names because, I don't know, I just use real names for whatever reason. But that monologue is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And every time I have a chance to work it in as something to do as a project, I try to. And it ends up always being a little too long for what the project's calling for. So I've never really successfully have done it. But that monologue is so beautiful. I cry every time I listen to it. I cry a lot during Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy is, I think I can probably honestly say it is my favorite movie of all time. There's not a movie to me that is better. I know a lot of people will argue that. And I know I could probably point out movies that do this better or do that better or do whatever better, but as a whole movie, I will always watch Chasing Amy no matter where I find it, whether it's on Netflix, no matter if it's on TBS or whatever. Chasing Amy is probably the movie I've seen the most in my life, and it is my favorite movie of all time, my favorite movie from Kevin Smith. It's just such a beautiful movie. And of course, the other monologue from Silent Bob when he talks about chasing Amy. Just another wonderful dialogue or monologue that I've tried to work in, and it's just hard to because Jay interrupts, and also because it's also a little long and whatnot. But I love Chasing Amy so dearly. It's very near and dear to my heart, because I don't know, whatever connection I connect to that movie. I connect that movie to a lot, and not because I'm a lesbian or anything, because that's obviously not it. It's just I really connect to Holden, the ideal love, I guess. Dogma. I'm gonna be starting to rush through these because I'm really running out of time, guys. But Dogma was probably the first movie I saw from Kevin Smith that I enjoyed. And what that means is I think I may have seen Mallrats with my uncle, but I definitely saw Dogma with my uncle. And in that movie is the first movie that I saw Kevin Smith that I remember liking. And I remember at the end of it, I think it says, at the end of the credits, it says Jay and Silent Bob will return or something like that. And that blew my mind. I was like, what? And just the universe building there. Dogma gives us like another good showcase movie of Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. It's just such a good cast. Alan fucking Rickman's in that movie. That blows my mind now. Like back then, it was like whatever. That's just the cast. But like now that I really sit down as a 32-year-old man to think about that Kevin Smith fucking worked with Alan Rickman blows my mind. And not because Kevin Smith is not good enough. It's just Kevin Smith and Alan Rickman come from two different worlds, and Alan Rickman is from my second favorite movie of all time is probably Die Hard. It's definitely my favorite Christmas movie. I can say that for sure. The fact that fucking Hans Gruber was in Dogma is just an amazing idea for me. From there we go to Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, which is probably the movie that I saw. I was 2001. I was 16, going on 17. I don't know when it came out specifically, but it's the year I turned 17, and that is the movie that reconnected me to Kevin Smith officially, and as a teenager made me go back and rewatch the whole universe. And really kind of become a Kevin Smith fan. It was, I remember just looking for things that he would do from that point forward, which, it was 3 years later. Most of his movies are about every 2 years roughly. So it was about 4 years until we saw Jersey Girl. Now I would say in between then, it was 3 years, I'm sorry. In between then is when I probably fell in love with Kevin Smith even more because of his Evening With series. He's such a great speaker and whatnot. And Jersey Girl, I've really enjoyed. That's a movie that I think does not get enough love. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought it's not as good as Chasing Amy, but Jersey Girl was really good. And I mean, I was disappointed that it wasn't officially part of that View Askew verse, but it's just such a good movie. I don't think it deserves all the flack that it got. I think it ranks up there with some of them. Again, I think Chasing Amy's better, but it's definitely not Kevin Smith's worst movie. And I don't know what I would call his worst movie because I enjoy every single movie that he's done. And I mean, I guess maybe saying that, maybe I would, if I had to pick one, it could be that. But I doubt it. I mean, I really enjoyed Jersey Girl. Ben Affleck, again, love that guy as an actor, so it's always great seeing him. Clerks 2, which is such a great movie. It's probably at least the pre-Red State days, it is probably his best movie. I think I like Jersey Girl more, but Clerks 2 is probably his best movie, critically. Maybe not critically, but I would say his best done movie. It's the movie that should have been, like, it's a perfect sequel to Clerks. Perfect sequel. I do want to touch on TV a little bit because this is when he started doing TV. He directed the pilot episode of Reaper, which was a really fun show. I really enjoyed that. And you can see that Kevin Smith, even though he wasn't the creator of it or anything, he set some tones for that show. He definitely set some tones for that show. Zack and Miri Make a Porno was a fun movie. Definitely fun. It wasn't, I think you could tell this is right around where he stopped telling stories for himself, and he was trying to tell stories for the studios and stuff. I think that you can tell that with this film, but I still enjoyed it. It is somewhat personal to him, I think. In my opinion, that's the story of him making Clerks, and I think he said that. If I remember one of his Q&As, he's gone on record and saying that was his, that Zack and Miri Make a Porno is kind of the story of him making Clerks. And I enjoyed it. Again, I enjoyed it. I mean, I think, Jeff Anderson. I think he's great in that flick. I think that's one of his best performances is in Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Cop Out, I love. I shouldn't say I love, but I enjoyed Cop Out. I can see where people may say they didn't, but to me, it just harkens back to the classic, 80s kind of buddy cop movie. I enjoyed it. It's a fun popcorn movie, I'll say. It's not written by Kevin Smith. It's just directed by him. I enjoyed it. Bottom line, I enjoyed it. We're going to go through the next three real quick. Red State, we're going to say them at the same time. Red State, Tusk, Yoga Hosers. Now, Red State is when he kind of lost it with the critics and whatnot. And which is, I guess kind of understandable with how he feels if you can get in that mindset. Red State is a movie where, like, I'm officially on board for liking it, but it took a couple watches because it was such a great film and it built up, and then boom, they ran out of money or whatever the reason was. It cut to that John Goodman scene of just him basically recapping the whole event. I've grown to like the movie. Like, the movie has become one of my top tier Kevin Smith movies. I think it's just insanely well written, insanely well shot, and it's just really good. Tusk is a movie I've only seen once, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I think that's what makes it a good movie. Is it causes conversation. So Tusk is a movie I definitely am going to go back and revisit. And Yoga Hosers is his most recent film, and I saw that on the Fandango event. So I saw that on, I think it was August 30th or something like that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It's definitely out there. It's definitely not a traditional Kevin Smith movie, but it has his elements in it. And you know what? At the end of the day, I enjoyed it. That's what I want to do in my movies. I want to go and watch a movie and enjoy it. And I'll rewatch it. And when my daughter's older and wants to start watching movies or whatever, when I go to sit her down, I don't know that Clerks will be the first movie I sit down with her to watch. It might be Yoga Hosers. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other movies, but I mean, the first Kevin Smith movie that I watched with my daughter will probably be Yoga Hosers because it's girl Clerks, but with some action in it. It was really good. And the only other thing I want to talk about when it comes to Kevin Smith is The Flash. The Flash, he directed an episode last season. I think it was episode 20 or 21, The Runaway Dinosaur. And it was so insanely good. Like, I loved it. Loved it. And I thought it was one of the better episodes of season 2. I loved season 2. The Flash is probably my favorite television show on not Netflix, on non-streaming TV. maybe The Walking Dead gives it a run for its money, but The Flash is something that I smile every time I watch. Oh God, I wish we had more time to talk about the season 3 premiere, because fuck that was good. Flash is so good. I can't wait to see what he does for in his episode this season, in season 3. But I mean, The Flash may be some of his best work. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. There's a lot more that I could tackle when talking about Kevin Smith, and I hope to talk to him one day on this show. That's never a goal I'm going to give up on. We got Aaron McGathy, and we'll get Kevin Smith, and we'll get Aisha Tyler. I don't know when, but we got Aaron McGathy. If we can get Aaron McGathy, in my opinion, we can get anyone we want. We just have to put our mind to it. Just a reminder, in 2 days, if you're listening to this on the day of release, we're going to be in New York, October 7th. It's a Friday at 11 p.m. We're going live with Everything is Awesome Late Night at the Producers Club in New York City, Hell's Kitchen. So make sure, if you're in the area, if you're at New York Comic Con, we're on way late. Come check it out. Tickets will be at the door if you don't buy them ahead of time. Just come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Late night, it's going to be loose. It's going to be going to be drinks. It's going to be fun. We're going to play some games. It's going to be fun. Come on, guys. Come do it. And don't worry if you're going to miss on that one. We're going to have another show November 17th at Bridget Sound on South Street in Philadelphia at 8 p.m. So don't worry. There's another opportunity for you to come see us. I love our live shows. It's just a different aspect for this. Make sure you let's see, what else do I want you to do? Make sure you go to nerdykev.com, and if you have the spare cash, donate to the Let's FCancer people. And again, I just want to thank everyone out there who has shown support and their positive vibes and prayers and stuff, for my uncle. I want to thank again Too Cool for Tabletop, Party of One, Quest for Magic and Steel, Smodcast, Tell 'em Steve Dave, and of course Campaign Podcast, for just the laughs, for making me laugh in a time when I really needed it. And thank you to the Super Friends for all your support. You can support us in many ways. Easiest way is to tell a friend and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. I swear to God, next week I'll start reading them on air. Thank you for doing that in advance. You can also support us through patreon.com. Patreon.com/awesome podcast. You can pledge a little bit of money, and that money will help us offset some bills and also maybe give you some bonus content, give you some swag, stuff like that. So if you have this extra cash, please, I'll appreciate it. I'll love you forever, and whatnot. So, for this week's Everything is... Oh, and of course, thank you to Kevin Smith for just your career. Again, not only just in movies, but podcasting. Kevin Smith, you are just a special person to me. I know I'm nothing to you, but you are a special person to me. And, anytime that I'm sad, I can either pop on a movie to laugh or pop on a podcast to laugh, or if I want to cry, I just pop on Chasing Amy and I'll cry. And whenever I need something like that, I can usually turn to you, Kev, and it works out. So thank you to Kevin Smith for being an inspiration to me as a storyteller, for being an inspiration to me as a podcaster. We're going to leave on that note. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, and you're listening to us right here only on awesomepodcast.com. We've been awesome.